Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank the viewers for tuning in to our 2019 candidate interview series for City Council in Tampa. At the Chamber, we focus on policy, not politics. And while we do not endorse candidates, we feel it's important to get them in front of the business community so we can hear their answers to topics that are important to our membership. Today, we're excited to have Lowry running for City Council District 4. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we are just under 6 weeks from Election Day. We're in the final stretch now. What's the message that you are planning to deliver to voters before they head to the polls?
That I'm the right leader to take Tampa to where we need to be. I've been a resident of Tampa for a little over 20 years, and I just keep seeing us be almost to the place we should be as a city. And the right leaders were at the right time. We've got some very exciting things happening. So just basically that we need to take our city to the next step.
Great. I want to chat a little bit about workforce housing, because I think that's one of those issues to get to the next step, right? So we hear from some that it's potentially a crisis, but there's definitely a need for workforce housing, more affordable housing. What zoning or policy opportunities do you see to address that need?
You know, there's no question that that's an issue. And there's really, you know, we talk about affordable housing, there's really a couple of issues. You know, it's low-income housing for those in the community that need that kind of support. But then it's all the way to the up-and-coming new residents that have great jobs, but just, you know, want to live in a desirable neighborhood. So making sure that that's reasonably priced as well. You know, I'm really excited by what other cities are doing, and even within our own city with, you know, some of the micro choices, micro apartments, tiny houses. I mean, some really cool stuff going on. I think that's a direction we need to go and look at. And I kind of, my whole campaign and my whole efforts so far have realized that there are some small immediate things that we can do to solve these problems. And then there's some big things that we need to do too. So, you know, preserving the quality of life in neighborhoods that exist with all its diversity, but also making sure that we plan smart development going forward.
Great. Some argue that the budget process is one of the most important processes of City Council and working with the mayor. We're hearing from state budget leaders, economists, that there could be a dip in the economy in a couple of years. If elected, that would fall under your term. How would you address that? How would you balance out the need in a budget for either cuts or tax increases in the midst of an economic downturn?
You know, certainly at this time, I don't support a tax increase. We just have seen a couple, which, you know, the infrastructure stuff that we've needed to do and stuff for education, obviously sales tax, but, you know, we kind of, I think we've reached a point at that's adequate. I just think we need to take a good hard look. So one of the things that I did as a volunteer was take a really hard look at the county's budget on the Citizens Advisory Committee there as chair. And, you know, there were some savings to be had. So, I mean, I think, you know, Tampa's in a great place. We need to move forward, but we need to make sure that we're spending every dollar as wisely as we possibly can.
Permitting process. We've heard from some of our members, folks in the community, that the permitting process is becoming more and more difficult. Of course, we support a safe process when issuing permits, but at the same time, we'd like to see some efficiency built in so either residents or businesses can move forward with their projects. How would you address this issue we're hearing from in the permitting area?
Yeah, I really think that some collaboration between the city and county and beyond that is necessary so that folks aren't having to do the same thing over and over again. And safety obviously is of paramount importance, but when I hear from friends in the community and certainly constituents over the last few weeks, that's not really the issue. It's just really, it's the redundancy, if we can eliminate that. And then in addition, you know, one of the things that I'd really like to see, and I think frankly is something I'd love to see in every facet of the community and the nation, is just some real civility and kindness. Sometimes I hear that, you know, these are folks whose whole livelihood may be on the line with this permitting, and having, you know, city employees that understand that and are willing to work with them and are willing to, you know, frankly, just be help and not hindrance. I think that's key.
Home rule. So we hear from local governments across the state of Florida that preemption is becoming more and more of an issue. They're growing frustrated, obviously, that there's a Tallahassee knows best mentality. Do you agree with that notion? And if so, how would you work as a city councilwoman to build a stronger relationship with our state delegation?
So I have a good relationship with a lot of those folks, certainly from the volunteer side, and, you know, will be different once I'm in office with them. But, certainly we want to work with Tallahassee, and sometimes Tallahassee knows a lot, but, I think generally speaking, we know what we need here in Tampa. And I was pleased to see that a lot of those things didn't actually end up coming to pass in the last session. I hope going forward, there'll be more of a sense of, not that it can't be legislated from up there, but getting a sense of what, our cities and municipalities actually need, and then going from that.
Great. Economic development, utilization of public-private partnerships, P3s, have become an asset for local governments across the country. What opportunities do you see in Tampa for us to utilize P3s?
A lot, a lot of them. So I've spent most of my life in, kind of a fundraising capacity, and it's a very similar situation where there's collaborations between public institutions, private donors. And I really think that that kind of thing is key, because not only does it provide funding and, access, but it also provides so much knowledge from both ends of the spectrum. If the private sector can come together with the public sector, I'm a huge proponent of that kind of thing. I'm a collaborator at heart as well. I like efficiency, and that sort of thing is absolutely key. Clearly, when it comes to our transportation stuff, that'll be something. But with workforce and workforce development and workforce housing, that could definitely come into play there too.
Great. You mentioned transportation. We'll stick on that. Obviously, in November, a chamber-supported referendum passed, injecting a new level of dollars into transportation. And while we all have transportation lists that we would like to see as far as projects get done, I want to ask you, what would be the number one priority project you would like to see out of the gate for Tampa?
That's a good question. This is another place where some big stuff needs to be planned for the future, and some really small stuff needs to happen immediately. And obviously on the city level, the small stuff is to some degree what we would be doing, the filling of the potholes and, making the areas around schools safer as much as we can affect that. Sidewalks and, all those things, integrating pedestrians and bicyclists with traffic, traffic. And I just, looking to the future, we need to plan ahead for the big stuff. And I look forward to looking at what those collaborations could mean too. I know that there's some money in there that, we may be able to partner with other institutions to be able to get that going. So really the small stuff for now, because that's what constituents want. They want their own roads and their thoroughfares to be safe and to be comfortable to ride on. But then looking to the future, we've kicked that can down the road too far. So it's, really gratifying that we've got a pot of money now to be able to do some of these projects.
So it sounds like to me the first thing out of the gates, low-hanging fruit, safety stuff, sidewalks, along the backlog projects that need to be caught up.
For sure. But like I said, we can't not plan for the future either. So that has to happen simultaneously.
Thought about that a little bit. What do you, in your opinion, what is the role of city council? And if elected, how do you see your role on council evolving over your term?
So I think that, we have a couple of roles to play. One is certainly, as both a collaborator and a check and a balance on the mayor. That is a strong mayor's position there. Here we have in Tampa, which is great. But we need to make sure, I need to make sure that my district's constituents are being heard. But then also collaborate. I'm not an obstructionist, so I'm not interested in holding back the city just because of things I might decide are important. But then in addition to that, we really need to provide, we have a bit of a bully pulpit as leaders on that council. And I think that there are things that I won't be able to legislate on, so to speak, but education is something we need to keep top of mind. It's in my heart, and certainly in my experience, but the city rises and falls by the education of its citizens, both from a quality of life standpoint for them individually, but also economically for the entire city. So I think we have a role to play in making sure those important issues stay forefront.
Great. We've touched on several important policy topics. Is there something we didn't talk about that is a priority of your campaign that you want the viewers to know about, or is there something you'd like to reemphasize that is a policy priority of yours?
I think we hit on most of it. I mean, certainly we all know what the big important things are, but just as I said, the city of Tampa is at an amazing place. We are right there, ready to grasp it. We have partners like, the Vinnick Group and people like that are just ready to take us to that level. I'm thrilled that the chamber is focusing on workforce development, because that sort of level, that's my experience at HCC. that level of community, that level of community person, you know, to provide that infrastructure and the backbone, I always call it the backbone of our city, is absolutely necessary too. So I'm glad y'all are focusing on that.
Absolutely.
But no, I think we covered it.
Mm-hmm. So our viewers watching this, where can they go to learn more about your campaign and your policy initiatives?
Great, thank you for asking. I have a website up at www, you still have to say that, leelowry.org, my name.
Great. Well, Lee, on behalf of our 1,400 members, our board of directors, thanks for joining us, and thank you for your willingness to serve in an elected capacity. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.